This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
Mike, man, good to have you on. Thanks for joining us today.
Sure, good to be here.
Hey, man, Christmas coming up. What do you remember? What was kind of your favorite gift when, maybe you were 12, 13 years old or so?
Oh, it was a bicycle.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. My sister had a bicycle, but I didn't have one, and I had to ride hers, and it was a girl's bike, and everybody made fun of me. So I wanted my own bike. And my mother, we didn't have much money, and she went down and put a bike on layaway and kept it in the store where it was for, 6 months. And then she snuck it in there after I went to sleep Christmas Eve, and it was there Christmas morning. And you could sort of tell what it was. It was like a big package. But when I unwrapped that thing, man, I couldn't wait to get outside and ride it up down. And then my next door neighbor, I just rode it by his house like, eat it. I got a bike like you now. That's not a girl's bike.
Mike, that's funny. That's how because that was when I was growing up, me and my sisters, we had bicycles, and that was definitely a Santa gift. But that's how you you didn't text anybody or call. You kind of rode around the neighborhood to see who was out and see who was home, to see who you were hanging out with that day.
Yeah, you had to, and then I go around the other side of the block and make sure they saw it too. You know,
right.
What? Hey, I don't care, but my bike is newer than yours, because this was a Schwinn. And I went down and looked at the same model, which they still had on the floor, and it was like $42. And the other one, this friend of mine had one that was $38, and I reminded mine cost $42. Yours was just $38. And it's just, you just one up somebody.
Mike, we got a little basketball, little football to get in with you today. Let's start with KJ. Let's start with what just happened over the weekend and with the portal and. Him, there's one. It's the warp zone. As soon as Phil leaves, I mess up. Mike, I'm a KJ fan, and I think he was going to be leading the line somewhere next year. It could be at a Jacksonville State. I don't think it's necessarily going to be like a Rocket Sanders going to South Carolina or Chris Paul going to Ole Miss. But I think he's going to be a starter, and I think he's talented, and I think he will have success. Where do you kind of see a fit for him? I think Jacksonville State with Rich Rod would be a good one. I don't know who's all contacted. I'm sure that the market on him is high. Where do you kind of see him ending up?
Well, I don't know. I've kind of always thought, what if he went back to TCU? I think their starting quarterback is still Chandler Morris, Chad Morris's kid. So that would be interesting to see what would happen there. That might not be it. Some people still try to claim it's Auburn because he was talking to some Auburn coaches outside the Broyles Center after that game and laughing, and the people have said all along, oh, yeah, that's where he's going. It's a setup. I don't know anything about that. And then there was a sort of a suspicion that he might be going to South Carolina because, of Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
It has some ties there. But, it's just he's got a certain skill set, and whoever feels like he fits that, maybe it's a RPO type system. Again, somebody that. The thing about KJ is he's a guy that when he really puts his mind to it, he's going to get you 20 or 30 yards if he has to run for it.
Mm-hmm.
And things can be bad, and then all of a sudden, boom, there he goes, and it kind of fires the whole offense up. So he's one of these lead-by-example guys. I don't know. I sort of felt like he was gone because I just looked at Petrino, and I thought, I don't know if that's a good fit. And I don't know if he made that decision when Petrino was hired or he had already decided, look, I've done enough here. It's time for me to go somewhere else. This is all so new that somebody would be here that long and then spend their last year somewhere else. But that's the way this goes. And it's just the new way of doing things. So wish him luck wherever he goes. And now we got a quarterback battle on our hands here at Arkansas starting next spring.
Yeah, and that was kind of what I was going to get to. We have a quarterback battle, but we also need some help. When you're 1-7, you need some help in some other areas. And if it's going to be Green and is it Criswell and Singleton that are kind of in the mix, it'd be interesting. But if you were to look at it, yeah, cool. We get a quarterback challenge that we're going to get some competition and see what happens. Where else, Mike, does this team really need to get somebody in the portal? Is it on the defensive side or the offensive side? But where else would you go attack this portal?
Well, they got two linemen in now, this kid Carmona from San Jose State, and his story is real interesting. Fans are mad because two of the biggest guys they brought in are mid-major schools. You got Green, and both of those guys, Green and Carmona, are guys that you look at them and you see some potential there. Maybe they were under the radar. In his case, supposedly he was didn't play football till his junior year, and then they made a tight end out of him. He was a tight end for 1 year, and then they had COVID, and he was lucky, he said, to even get a scholarship, but I guess he got one. And then they spent a couple of years turning him into an offensive lineman, and so the theory is he gets to a place like Arkansas with a really good offensive line coach. Maybe he explodes and turns into an all-SEC guy. There's this whole potential thing. Same thing with Green. But I think they've got, they've also, early on, the first one they got was this kid. It was the number one JUCO, and then he went to Michigan State but didn't play there, Keyshawn Blackstock. He's an offensive lineman. I still think they need a center. I don't know if they're going to get one. They had an offensive lineman from Tennessee in for a visit, but there's been no word on that. But I think you've got to have some people change that offensive line. And then, obviously, the way they cleared out some linebackers, you need some linebackers. And I guess, let's see, so far, the only one I see is Brooks Urachek, who's a preferred walk-on. So, I mean, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these guys. And you got about, 2 weeks left, a little more than that. And I'll just say this, Matt, there's fans are freaking out because Ole Miss has the number one portal class. And see, look what's happened here. I mean, signing day is coming up, and nobody's talking about signing day because it just doesn't care about freshmen anymore. It's like, we got to have these guys. So Ole Miss has got the number one class, and now Auburn suddenly pulled in a couple of people and had visits from Georgia, and they're freaking out that these guys may go to Auburn, these Georgia guys, and we're getting guys and mid-major guys, so it's a disaster. And, I understand it, but there's just not anything you can do because you don't know how any of these guys are going to fit in. You just don't. Look at this Muss basketball class. I mean, that was really ballyhooed, and I think all those guys are talented, but he's still juggling around trying to figure out who does what, where, when, and how.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was gonna kind of get to next, and Musselman, and that's one thing, back to back Elite Eights, is that right? And then you get a new group in, and they haven't done that. That's a totally different team of players that did that. But that bullseye is still on the back of your jersey. So whenever you play anybody, this is their Super Bowl. They're getting matched up, and I don't think we're bringing the intensity yet. That we have to, because everybody's looking, hey man, this is a top 10 team, or the last couple of years, and we're not playing like it right now.
Yeah, I went back and looked at that Lipscomb game. I watched it, then I went back and watched it again, specifically that period of time when they went from coming into the second half, they upped the lead from 10 to 20 and then lost it, got down to 1. And you're watching what's going on there. And one of the things I noticed, and I don't know if fans do this, but I'm not just looking at Arkansas. I'm looking at the other team. I don't care what you say about Lipscomb. I hadn't studied them, but I watched them in that game. And I will say offensively, they ran their offense. They were relentless in the way they ran their offense. Their motion, their setting picks, they're just going and going and going. And Arkansas, when they played with intensity and stayed right with those guys and got them down to 6, 7, 5 seconds before the shot clock, then they'd shoot off balance and miss, and now you got the ball back. And that's how they built that lead. And then Arkansas was doing the same thing on the offensive end. They were working the ball. People were moving. You get the ball into the middle, and you don't force the guy in the middle of the lane to shoot a shot when he's double covered because you got a cutter coming down the baseline. But when they stopped doing that, and it changed. I mean, people started jacking up threes and missed a couple of those, and then the next thing you know, they get a guy in the middle, but he's not really open, and so he has to kick it back outside, and you miss a third three. And then defensively, they got energy now. They're blowing right by your defense and getting layups or shooting open threes. And the next thing you know, it's a 1-point game, and you may get beat. And then what happened, Matt? The guy that you always forget about, that kind of just sits back there and plays defense, suddenly went, well, crap, I guess I got to do something. And Devo goes in and does what nobody else has been able to do in that stretch. He made a layup. And it turned out to be the winning, the points that made a difference. Wasn't winning, but it took them from 1 to 3, and then they missed a couple of threes, and so you escape. But what's going on? People can't figure out why Jalen Graham, who was playing so well, suddenly ended up on the bench in that stretch. And Musk said after the game, well, number one, he's still not rebounding. He's playing defense better, but he's not rebounding. And he had a turnover. So I think it's hard to kind of make people understand this, but I think this time of year, Musselman is not so much concerned with winning as if he's got a player like Jalen Graham, he's going to make you do what he wants you to do. And if he has to put you on the bench and it hurts the team, he's going to do it because he wants these problems to be solved once you start SEC play.
Yeah, I mean, we had a little conversation. I guess one more question before we let you go. We had a little conversation earlier, and Phil was kind of saying that he thinks Devo could be the point. I don't know that that's his natural position, but that being said, who's going to be? We don't have that identity yet. We do not know who our point guard is. Who do you think that's going to be?
Yeah, I don't know. Minifield, is quick. He's short, but it's a new addition. He's fresh, and I thought he played really well, considering that was his first game and everybody else is in their 8th or 9th game. And now we got to see what he can do in the time between now and the start of conference play. But the problem you got with him is he's short. And Muss has already said, we got a problem matching up with other teams' guards the tall guards from a defensive standpoint. So I don't know. I still like Blocker. He's a freshman, but he's really playing hard, makes some mistakes, but I think eventually I would think it might be him. But, with Muss, different guys play the point, just like Devo. He's not a true point guard, but sometimes he does it. So I think it'll be a shared duty probably.
BetOnline is your #1 source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.